I wasn't getting out of bed.
I wasn't going to work.
I hid my problems from everyone.
I didn't want people to judge me.
I watched my daughter suffering.
I didn't know what to do.
Because you joined the conversation, we know we are not alone.
We are not weak.
We are not ashamed.
We are strong.
And help is out there. We need to ask for it. Join the conversation. Visit letstalkstigma.org.
Hello, I'm Frank Cammarata, Executive Director of the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities and Board Member of the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition. On behalf of the Coalition, as we continue to celebrate our 6th year anniversary of anti-stigma advocacy, we have another great opportunity to meet experts in the field and discuss these timely concerns. This time, we're focusing on the state of stigma and current world events and their impact on veterans and their families as we celebrate our veterans this Veterans Day. A little bit of history to share with everyone. In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first Armistice Day, stating, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride and heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for victory." This following the end of World War I, the war to end all wars. An armistice went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. In 1938, the word armistice was removed and replaced with the word veterans. On June 1, 1954, November 11th became a day to honor American veterans of all wars. Before I introduce our panelists, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Our program is 1 hour. During this time, if you have a question or a comment, please type it into the chat box and we will respond accordingly. Your questions and input often lead to really terrific dialogue, so please don't be shy. There is no such thing as a silly question, as we're all here to learn today. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our terrific panelists. First up, Felice Krycia. She is a U.S. Air Force veteran who served at the end of the Vietnam era. Felice was a corrosion control specialist and was the first woman to do this job for missile maintenance on the silos in Montana. Felice's father, at the age of 16, joined the U.S. Navy at the end of World War II and served in the Pacific Theater in the Philippines. Currently, she works as director of the Erie County Department of Veteran Services and has been with the department for 10 years. The goal of the department is to assist veterans and their families to navigate the Department of Veterans Affairs Benefits Administration forms and regulations to get them benefits. And that's the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Previously, Felice worked for a local newspaper for 22 years in various capacities, including associate editor. Welcome, Felice, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for having me.
Next up, Dan Arnold. Dan is a 23-year retired Air Force medic, married with 4 children. Dan retired in 2007 at the rank of Master Sergeant, trained as a paramedic, independent duty medical technician, and attended the Special Operation Combat Medic course at Fort Bragg. Dan was deployed to Operation Enduring Freedom and had completed numerous Air Force Special Operations Command, or AFSOC, specific missions in Bosnia, Africa, South America, and Southwest Asia. Dan ended his military career as the AFSOC Career Field Manager for Enlisted Medical Personnel, Senior AFSOC Medic, and represented AFSOC and the Air Force in developing the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Training Criteria for Special Operations Medics. After retiring, he spent the next 10 years as a military spouse, following his wife around until her retirement in 2017. Currently, Dan works at the Veterans One-Stop Center as Director of Veterans Engagement and the Joseph P. Dwyer Veteran Peer Support Manager for Erie, Niagara, Livingston, Yates, and Steuben counties. He also served as a military family caregiver coach, working directly with caregivers caring for disabled veterans. Dan, welcome, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And we have Kathy Snyder, who is the CEO of Beaver Hollow and the Biggest Loser Resort, Niagara. Beaver Hollow is an award-winning retreat center set on over 200 beautiful acres overlooking a spring-fed lake. Beaver Hollow's mission is to improve health and well-being of military and civilian community by strengthening and supporting the organizations that serve them. They provide a comprehensive and multidisciplinary approach to holistic wellness through a process of self-assessment, skill building, utilization of new skills, and connection to services when needed. They are a woman-owned family business that is very connected to the community that they work and live in. Kathy attended the Culinary Institute of America and holds a 6 Sigma Black and Green Belt. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi.
Welcome to all of our panelists, and thank you for joining us today. As we begin our discussion today, conflicts are being fought all over the globe. Many we are made aware of by our news media, and many are continuous civil wars in small countries. We are all very aware of Russia's attack on the Ukraine and the Ukrainians' continued struggles to defend their homeland. The latest war began a few weeks ago with a Hamas attack on Israeli soil. The United States has sent ships and soldiers into the Middle East to deter any other potential combatants. There have been reports of our soldiers being wounded by rocket fire, being wounded by rockets being fired into Iraq and Syria. The United States military is also concerned with potential Chinese action on Taiwan. So many military concerns around the globe for our U.S. armed forces, the men and women involved, as well as their families. So with all that being said, with all the turmoil in the world at this time involving the numerous conflicts, Dan, what are you seeing in
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, there it was muffled there for a minute.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Oh yeah.
Fine.
With what's happening and talking to veterans that come to our facilities or come to our events, and I meet out in the community, it can be a trigger for what's going on in the world. It can be a trigger for the veteran, thinking about, there might have been something packed away in their brain when they were deployed, or maybe they hoped to get over and get past that situation. But then all of a sudden stuff in the world and in the news and everywhere you see it is coming up about us maybe going to war again. And that can obviously trigger that back out and bring those feelings back out to them, where now they're going to start going back to where they were. And it's if they kept it in their whole time, it's going to start all over for them. But if they were starting to get over it, and they're starting to get past that in their stage of their life currently, and then this happens, it triggered them again, they went backwards. And we don't want to see that happen. So hopefully they'll, come do what they got to do. But definitely I can see how world events, what's going on today, can be used as a trigger to get veterans thinking about those things again.
And Felice, are you seeing and hearing the same thing?
Most of our clients that come in are, some of them are younger and they're more attuned to what's going on, and there's some nervousness there. We've got a couple that are reservists that are now kind of on the edge of their seat, wondering if they're going to be deployed, and are still struggling with dealing with their first deployment or maybe their second deployment. And now they're a little bit concerned about that they're going to go back into that, and if they're going to be able to handle it. Some of them have said they don't think they're going to be able to handle it. And I had one just recently tell me that he's thinking about getting out of the reserves because he doesn't want to take the chance of being put back in that situation. So there is some anxiety. A lot of the veterans that I work with that come to me specifically are Vietnam vets, because that's my time period. And they are dealing with their own terrors and things from Vietnam, because now that they're older, they can't keep themselves as busy as they used to. And because of that, they're having those doors that they thought were closed have been opened back up again. And I don't think that watching the news is helping them at all. So I think that has also helped pop those locks that they thought were, in place to give them security or, a breathing space from their own terrors. I think a lot of that because Vietnam was the most televised war. That was the start of all of that, of everything being shown on TV. And now you're watching the same stuff, and it's not really much different. So it's bringing that back to their forefront.
Yeah, it sounds as though unfortunately the national media is really maybe doing some harm to our veterans and maybe our active duty members.
I would say so. Because that's in living color and stereophonic sound, and that's for any combat vet to see that over and over again, they can't help but put themselves back in those shoes again.
Yeah. So, Felice, why do you feel the stigma of mental illness is so strong in the veteran community?
There's a lot of, for the younger veterans, they're working. So they don't want to be tired. They don't want somebody to say to them, well, you've got PTSD or you've got anxiety or depression. They don't want to have that kind of title added to their name, especially if they have jobs that are in like police force, firemen, any kind of hospitals, any kind of areas where they need to be on their game. It's going to, what a couple of them have said to me when I have mentioned that they probably should go for some counseling to help them know what the triggers are and things like that. They say, I don't know. I don't want anybody to know that I'm having any problems. I could lose my job. I like to hunt. I don't want my guns to be taken away from me. I don't want to be on anybody's radar. And there's, concern about that. So and then for some of the older veterans, they don't want to deal with telling people about what they went through. When you talk to Vietnam veterans, a lot of them don't want to talk about what happened. They were never welcome back to this country. There is a lot of a war that couldn't be won. We lost. We had to leave the Vietnam country to North Vietnam. I mean, there's a lot of anger among those veterans that so much American blood was spilled and we lost the war. And then, they come back and they're hated. And they don't want to deal with VA. They don't want to deal with any kind of government issued anything. So they don't want, there's a whole thing about, I can handle it. I can handle this. And I say this all the time. Veterans are, when you have the fight, flight, or freeze, of the personalities, we're fighters, especially now because it's a non-draft, military. So they have that kind of a personality. Well, we're fighters. That means we don't like to admit that we can't handle something. And we like to fix problems, but we don't think we're in denial that we have problems ourselves. So there's a lot to it.
And Dan, are you seeing the same thing?
It's like in some people, it's what she was saying. Big brother's watching me. I don't want anybody to know anything about me, type of thing. And we actually even have some clients, veterans that we work with, that they won't even fill out our paperwork, and it's very minimal. I mean, we don't put anything about what we're talking to them about. We just want their name and address and stuff to put in our database, and they're afraid of that. So you can imagine how afraid they'd be of anything else being documented. It's, the people losing things, jobs, guns, whatever it may be, if they have that tag on them, which they don't want. And it's so funny that it happened today. We just I was working out in our gym last night, and there was a veteran who needs assistance. He's actually still in the guard or reserves, but he won't ask for the help because he's afraid. He won't even go to his first sergeant because he's afraid what can happen. Maybe they'll kick him out. He just doesn't know what's going to happen to him if he identifies that he's having some issues. And it's sad because he is having issues. And he's not going to get the help. And we keep pushing him and talking to him, fingers crossed that he will. But we can only do so much to get him in there. But yes, it's because he's afraid he'll lose that portion of his income.
So fear is, I hate to say, fear is a great motivator for stopping people from seeking that help.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. Fear of the repercussions.
Fear of the repercussions. Yeah. What are, I mean, Felice, you touched on the, like a gun permit. What are other things that may stop people from seeking help?
Well, if they're in a job situation which depends on them keeping a cool, level head, like say they're a counselor, say they're a security guard, say they're a sheriff or a town police officer or a detective or a teacher, there's a lot of responsibility and you're under a lot of stress. And so those veterans, if they feel that they're vulnerable because they have mental anxiety or depression or PTSD, they don't want their employers to know that they may snap. Now, doesn't mean that they're going to snap, but there's this fear that they might snap. And then if they do snap, what's going to happen? And that's what they're worried about. If their employers are going to say that, well, I can't have you standing in front of a bunch of teenagers and have you lose your temper and then start throwing things or yelling or doing things like that. And it's not reality, but they have that fear that they just might not, if somebody knows that they might have a weakness, that they'll lose their positions. I mean, it's a big fear, and especially in today's environment with inflation and everything else, nobody can afford to suddenly lose their jobs, and so they a lot of veterans who are having these issues are hesitant to reach out to get the help because they don't want to put their jobs at risk, their families at risk. There's a variety of things that go on that percolates within them that makes them not want to reach out for assistance, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. Well, we got our first viewer question. Thank you, viewer. What advice do you give to somebody if they're fearful of admitting that they may need help?
I would say talk to a peer, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a peer support specialist. I'm saying that because that's someone you can talk to that will hopefully be non-judgmental of what you're going through and just listen to you and be there. And then hopefully that'll make you start feeling more comfortable and opening up. Then maybe you can take that next step and open up to a counselor, open up to your family. Not everybody opens up to their family either, but it's easier sometimes to open up to a peer, another veteran, and just talk to them. And that goes into hopefully we'll get into later about what we do, and that's exactly what we do and why we're here.
You know what, Dan? I was going to kind of follow up and say to you, can you describe the difference between a clinical and a peer support provider?
Yeah, in my opinion, I'm not clinical, so I'm not going to say what the clinical people actually do, but they're more professionals. They have training in how to deal with situations at a higher level than any peer specialist will ever be. Peer specialists are exactly what it is. We're just a peer. We're just a buddy. We're someone for you to talk to that you can just feel free to talk to. We're considered mandatory reporters, but that's only if it comes to suicidal ideations. I would feel obligated. I would have to, if I felt somebody was going to do something like that, I would report them. And plus, I would do that anyways as a human being. But we're not documenting stuff. There's no documentation. That's really the big thing, because people fear that documentation. We don't document anything. We might document your name just so we can put you in our database, and that's only so we can keep getting money from grants to keep doing what we're doing. But we're not documenting the situations. We're listening. We're a buddy. We're there to help, and then we're also there to guide. We'll guide you in the direction. If you need counseling, we'll recommend some places. If you need financial assistance, we'll help with that. If you need help getting into the VA system, we'll help you with that. That's what a peer is really for, where a clinical is more into the aspects of the medical side of the treatment.
So I'm not a veteran, but I do know that the buddy system is key, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah,
It's
the US
embedded.
military.
When you're deployed, you don't go anywhere without a buddy. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. So that kind of continues as they go on in life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. All right. We got another question. This is great. Do you have any suggestions for providers on how to build trust with the veterans community? Felice, can I throw that out to you?
Well, like there are a lot of different events that are held like all year round. So what I would like suggest is that, there are a lot of different organizations out there. There's a lot of like veterans belong to the American Legion, VFW, things like that. We try to reach out to those organizations to try to meet with those particular veterans. A lot of what we try to do is we try to go out and meet with the veteran community to let them know what, is available for them. Which I guess would also, you take the time to talk to them and try to get their trust so that we can do what we're supposed to do, which is help them file paperwork with the VA and navigate through that morass. But Dan does the same thing. They go to outreaches, they try to get the word out that we're there. And I'm sure Kathy does that too, where you go into different, like when there's a stand down or there's, some kind of organization that wants to have a tabling event, like whether it's at a local VFW or Legion or at the Naval Park or, wherever. A lot of that, and a lot of it's word of mouth too. We try to get other veterans to talk about, what we do to get their friends to come and contact us. But a lot of it is just being in the same areas that they are and then just having those conversations.
Thank you, Felice. And I'm going to throw this to Kathy because throw the same question to Kathy because your role, the programming that you provide, you have to deal with the trust issue, right?
Sure. I think trust is mandatory and people need to feel heard, respected, seen, but they have to also have confidence that what happens under your roof, under your care is protected and safe, or there's no, they aren't going to share, they aren't going to open up, and yes, trust is key.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that kind of leads me to, and Kathy, I'm going to get you into this question. Where can people go who are seeking help? I'm going to ask everyone, but I'm going to, start with you, Kathy.
Well, I think, unfortunately, sometimes you have to start in your own community. And when you're rural, like we are, it's not always easy to get to. So it's important that people collaborate and work together. But I think that there's a willingness for people to collaborate. And I'm going to use, law enforcement and first responders, a lot of them have served. There's organizations that exist for the municipal employees of Erie County through the Labor Management Healthcare Fund. We do a stress management program and a post-critical incident training, and we work with cadets right out of the academy to help them learn through holistic tools how to better manage stress. So they can go through their place of employment. There are things in place where it is kept confidential. They can go through their insurer because HIPAA, it has to be confidential. There's community organizations. Some are more confidential than others. When we're working with active duty, it's a little different. We do a lot with active duty, and their chaplains are there for them. And sometimes, if it is life-threatening, as Dan said, for that person's own safety, you have to do something to help them and protect them, protect others. But there are things in place that that they're trying to spread the word on, even at I'll use Fort Drum as an example because they're with us right now. The Army and the chaplains have worked together to help support the about to be deployed or the being redeployed and their families, because their families sometimes aren't from the area they're in and they don't know where anything is and they're isolated. So I think it's a combination of communication, making the resources known, and helping people know that that they can reach out, that it's there for them, especially if it doesn't cost anything, it isn't going to be reported anywhere, it isn't going to reflect badly on anyone. But I think and this is my limited exposure, but it seems like there's more of a willingness than there ever was. And I'm hearing it from the commanding general at Fort Drum to people in our community that there is a recognition that we have to help teach people how to communicate their emotional self, and we have to have resources there when they do.
Okay, thanks. And Dan, can you tell me? I mean, your program is I know it's one of the best in Erie County, but what other resources or where can people go to seek help?
Oh yeah, well, first, if they're in crisis, 988. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Just dial 1 and hit 1 if you're a veteran. You can come. There's a lot of places in Western New York. I mean, there's other peer support programs besides ours, and I really recommend if you're nervous about talking to somebody, you're not ready to go take that step to go clinical. Find a peer. Whether I don't care if it's someone who works as a peer support. Find a peer. But that's what we're available for. The VA has peer support specialists, Western New York Heroes, Veterans One Stop. We all have people who are ready to do this and be there for the veterans. And that's how we design our program. The Dwyer program, it's exactly what it's about. It's to be there, and it's in every county of Western New York. I'm happy to say I got a new one, so I have 6 now. But it's that's what that program is for. Those are all peer support specialists who work for that, and they're there for veterans to come to and talk and let them know what's out there, so we can refer them to places. Financial counseling. A lot of people need financial counseling, education benefit counseling, health benefits counseling, like what Felice does. There's tons of stuff out there that we can help them with. They just got to be comfortable to come to us, which is why the Dwyer program, like I said, is set up, and it's designed to do events and to do fun things to help drag them out of their house and out of their isolation. So they'll ask for that help. And that's where we come in, and ask us and we'll get you what you need.
Great. Well, thanks, Dan. If anyone is just joining us, I'm Frank Cammarata from the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition, and I'm joined by Felice Krycia, Director of Erie County Veterans Services Agency, Dan Arnold, Director of Veteran Engagement at the Veterans One Stop of Western New York, and Kathy Snyder, who is CEO of Beaver Hollow Therapeutic Recreation for Military and First Responders. Today, we're discussing the impact of current world events on veterans and their families. Everyone joining us, please take a moment and check out our website, letstalkstigma.org, and maybe join nearly 4,000 others in taking the pledge to end stigma. I know that we're very close to that 4,000 number, so we'd love to have you joining us. Also, if you're connected with a business, organization, or faith community, you can become an organizational member of the Anti-Stigma Coalition. You can find information for this on the website under the Members tab. And now back to our panelists. We've just spent the past 20, 25 minutes talking about the veterans and the active duty folks. But a lot of those people have families. What about them? Are there specific services for those families?
Families are important.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm sorry.
No.
Families are important as part of the healing process for the veteran. So families need to be taken care of too. Especially, I saw that as a caregiver coach early in my time here at VOC. I was dealing with the caregivers of the veterans who had disabilities, and they need services also, and they have some. There's programs out there for caregivers and family members. Even our programs, and I believe Kathy's programs, you have families coming too sometimes. We do family programming specifically for that reason, because they're part of this. They're part of the military family. So I'll stop interrupting whoever interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Dan referenced Kathy. Kathy, do you want to add what type of family services are you providing?
So what we get a lot of families that are, a service member's about to be deployed, and we do some deployed spouses groups where they come with kids. But what was try and help them prepare for what they're going through with some holistic skills. So they'll do active listening. We'll take each realm of wellness, which is the same for whether it's holistic, H2F for active duty or VA whole health. It's all those realms. We kind of separate out sleep and financial because you have young families who are new to budgeting and learning how to read their leaves and earnings statement. So we do a couple basic things to make sure that they know what they've got, and then we connect them back to what their services are, which it's all there. They just don't, if they don't see it on their phone, they just don't know where it is. And I would say out of all the realms, sleep is the worst for everybody, whether you're the service member or the spouse. People are not sleeping, which exacerbates a lot of things. I can tell you that the spouses aren't comfortable in the gyms at the bases because they're a little intimidated. So you might have the about to be deployed. They're great physically. Their spouse isn't, and they're uncomfortable using the resources they have because they don't know how to just walk in there and use everything. You've got, the isolation where you're in a community where you don't know people, and there's a lot of people who English is not their first language. So you've got a language barrier. So it's, I think it's really about having the high touch type of services available where they feel comfortable reaching out to it because they've met it. It takes a person to connect another person. And I think they're much more comfortable when they've already met the person or when there's something in place that forces them together. I don't know if I answered it.
No, you're fine. That's great. Felice, do you feel that the families have a different set of emotions than those who are serving? And what are those emotions?
Well, in most cases, when we're working with veterans to get benefits and stuff, the family members are there as like sort of mental support for them to go through the paperwork, like to try to be there to help the veteran. But because our jobs are very specific, we have to navigate the rules and regulations that the VA sets up. So what we're doing, like when we're working with veterans to do compensation claims, the family members are just satellites, to that particular claim. And there's nothing that the VA is willing to pay for, for spouses or things like that in the part that we're working on. And the only spouses that actually can file for VA assistance usually are spouses who are surviving spouses of deceased wartime vets. So we have a much more confined area of what we can and cannot do, because we're dealing pretty exclusively with VA rules and regulations. And, sometimes that's very difficult, because I will get spouses who they want medical, they don't like that. They may only have Medicare, and they want to be able to get VA healthcare, and their spouse is not, 100% service connected disabled, so they can't get any kind of assistance. So like I said, our hands are kind of tied by what we can do with spouses who are looking for these benefits, but the VA is not willing to give them those kind of benefits. And sort of a smart alecky response sometimes that I get from VA employees is that if the military wanted you to have a spouse, they would have issued you one, so they they're not going to support the spouse or the children, because that's not part of who you are or what you are as a veteran. They just, you're like you are an entity all by yourself, and they don't consider family. So that's sort of when we get family members in here that are working, and they are in need, we do send them to the one-stop center or to other organizations. I try to have them reach out to their churches, for assistance, and possibly, with other programs within the county, like senior services or temporary aid, there are so many in social service. There's so many things offered through social services. So we try to connect them with those kind of things. But as far as our office, we are really limited to what the VA is willing to do, which needs to be fixed, but that's a whole other 5,000 hour conversation.
Well, that might be next November. You never know, Felice. Don't give us any ideas here, right? So Dan, Kathy kind of scratched the surface, but I want to kind of throw this out to you. Types of traumas for military families, family members of active duty or veterans. What are they going through?
They're going through, how would I put it? It's uncomfortable, and because they don't know what's happening. They see a change in their veteran or active duty member. They see a change in it when they come back, and they don't know how to deal with it. So, and then their emotions start. Hopefully, it doesn't escalate the problem by keep antagonizing their veteran or active duty member who's going through issues while they're at home, and it starts making it uncomfortable, and it just makes the whole household uncomfortable, and then the feelings just go crazy from there, right? So what they're going through is not knowing what to do, helplessness. They feel lost. They want to help their spouse or whoever it is that's going through it in their family. It can even be a son or a brother or whatever. And they don't know what to do. So the helplessness is the hardest thing. And what they need to remember is, don't force things, but try to be there for them, and maybe find a buddy that they were in the military with to talk to them. If they won't open up to you, try to find something like that to help them out. But it's really helplessness is how they're feeling.
That term buddy keeps coming up here today.
It's important.
Yeah. We have another question here. And Dan, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you, are there services specifically for children of service members?
Now with our organization, we have a Operation Children of the Military program. It's a peer support program, which is specifically designed for exactly what it says, children of the military. It's ran through the Office of Mental Health for Erie County, and they put on events to bring families out with the children, so the children can bond with each other, meet new families, which is a huge thing. On an active duty base, in my opinion, families bond better because a lot of them are dislocated there. They don't live there. They didn't grow up there. So they sort of bond together better, I've noticed, especially coming from the active duty side. Moving back here, it was really my first experience on the outside with reserve and guard units and how they are. They come in for a weekend and everybody leaves. A lot of their families don't know each other. So they don't have families in their community necessarily that have that same bond of the military background, knowing how it is when your spouse deploys, and you're left home alone with the kids. So they start feeling isolated. And that's what this whole program is really designed, is to help them have somewhere to go, with the children, with the families who are not, who don't understand, or they can be around families that understand what they're going through.
Kathy, we everybody knows we had a discussion before this event, and you described PTG. Can you talk about that at all?
Sure. So post-traumatic growth is the concept that the trauma, the stress, the struggle can actually help you grow. So there's a quote that smooth seas do not make a good sailor. But we don't get to choose those things that happen to us, that we go through as an individual, as a family. But they don't, not only do they not have to define us, but we can use some of it to move forward and use the grit of it to help us be stronger and to know that we can get through it. And sometimes, because as you go through a variety of decades, as those experiences accumulate, it turns you into what you can do now. I'm sure Dan and Felicia, after your experiences, you have an empathy and understanding for the people who come to you. When you've been through something and someone has a shared experience, it's easier for you to know how to help and understand them. But as an individual, as you look at those things and those experiences, you make a choice. Is it going to hold me back, or can I use it to go forward? And that's where everybody in this comes in. We are all doing different parts of helping people take these experiences and move forward, or prepare to know how to handle an experience when it happens. Some of what we do is preventative stuff, so that if you learn breathing, if you learn mindfulness, if you learn grounding, that when something happens, it's not like learning to swim when you're drowning. You have some tools in your toolkit. If you already know what resources you have, you may not need them at that time, but someone who reports to you might. So it's about learning how to grow through adversity, and I think for a community, it's helping each other do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Felice, I'm going to give you the next question. I'm going to move away from the families and go back to the veterans. Is there a difference between the generations of veterans to discussing stigma? Keeping in mind that we have veterans who have served and who are still alive from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. I guess the list keeps going on and on.
Keeps going on, yeah.
Right? Yeah. But, what are there differences between the generations of veterans?
Absolutely. And I think that Dan and Kathy both touched on that, where the younger generations are more aware that there are going to be issues and that there are issues. And there's less, they're a little more likely to talk about them or know that they need to talk to a peer group or to reach out to somebody, that they're not supermen. The older generations, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, they are much more resistant to saying that they need any kind of assistance, which is why so many of those generations had alcohol abuse. And, you can talk to a lot of people who had parents that were in World War II, and they were like, yeah, they drank a lot. That's the way they handled it. A lot of the Vietnam vets came back and they were introduced to marijuana and heroin and poppies and all that out in Southeast Asia. And those drugs came back with them. And so that was more of a way of them to handle it, was just a lot of substance abuse. And they don't reach out for help. Because of organizations like this and talking in public about that PTSD and having these stresses and everything are normal for you to have when you're in combat or to be in these kind of situations, I think it makes the younger veterans think about it. Doesn't negate the fear that they have of losing jobs and things like that, but I think they are more aware that their issues are they're not the only boat out on the lake that's having these problems. That they know there's a whole lot of other people out on the lake paddling away too, and that what they need to do is they need to bring the fleet together, and face problems together. So there is a little more awareness that that they're not an island by themselves, that there are a lot of other veterans just like them that are struggling with these problems. And I think it opens them up a little bit more to come to the One Stop or to go to Beaver Hollow to try to get, work through some of this, angst and learn how to do these kind of things to handle the triggers. When we get a client here and they're a younger one and they've been in Afghanistan or Iraq, and I will talk to them and I will say, you have this, and this, and this going on, correct? And they'll look at me and they'll like, how do you know that? And it's like, because this is what happens when you're in these situations. And so what you are feeling is normal for a combat veteran. And a lot of times they just look at me and they're like, wow, I can't believe that you knew exactly how I am without me saying anything. I said, it's because you are just like everybody else that comes back from these situations. Don't feel like there's something wrong with you because that you have these anxieties, because you don't like walking into a crowded room, because you have to know where your escape routes are, and that you don't like loud noises, and you worry about what you see laying on the side of the road if it could be a bomb. These are all things that you were programmed for to survive when you were in a combat situation. Well, you can't be unprogrammed. Once that's in you, it's in you for your life. So then when I talk to them, I'll say to them, are you getting any counseling? Are you talking to any peer groups? Are you doing anything? And if they say no, then I strongly recommend to them, I usually give them the Dwyer paperwork, for them to know where the One Stop is. Or I tell them, I recommend that they talk to the Buffalo Vet Center, which is through the VA healthcare, and they work with just military sexual trauma and combat vets. And they're very specific. A lot of their counselors there are combat vets themselves. And I've had quite a few of my clients go that way to the vet center, and that's worked very well for them. And I tell them, you need to learn how to handle triggers so that you don't get overwhelmed. And I have better conversations with that with my veterans that are in their 30s and 40s than the veterans that are in their 70s and 80s. They are much more resistant to looking for assistance. They still think that they don't have a problem, and if they do have a problem, they can handle it on their own.
Okay.
Very aggravating.
All right. Dan, this weekend we're going to be celebrating. Well, I shouldn't say this weekend. Today we're celebrating, but the next few days we're going to be celebrating Veterans Day. So how can the public be educated to help veterans to reduce stigma?
Good question. How the public can help is learning. Or my first response would be, just go ahead and serve, and you'll learn firsthand. But learning through, there's military culture training. A couple of years ago, I helped put a video together. I edited it specifically for that type of training. Even here at the Veterans One Stop, a lot of our workers here, they're not military, they're not veterans. So they go through a military cultural training, so they can learn, what veterans are like, what's as best you can, through training, to learn what it's like to be a veteran. What are some of the things they do? How do they act? Some of their terminology, and things like that. So that's one of the big ways they can help, is learn what veterans are going through. Because if a veteran's, part of the stigma, we talked about the fear, but it's also going to someone they don't trust. And if the community counselors or peers or whoever don't show that they had that, some type of military culture training of some sorts, doesn't have to be anything formal. It makes it harder for a veteran to approach and talk and open up. So that's how I see how they can help the most.
Okay.
Besides serving.
All right. Yeah, no. Kathy, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Oh.
There I am.
There you go.
So I didn't serve, but I serve a lot of people who have. Mm-hmm. And, my father was in the Korean War, but I think it helps for our service members and their families to feel welcome. And if there's a genuine sense that that our community is for everybody and that we appreciate what they are doing. I mean, they are putting themselves in harm's way to protect our lifestyle, and having an appreciation for our heroes and to thank them and to let them know that what they are doing is appreciated and noticed, and that we're here to take care of each other, including their families when they're deployed. Because I think that sense of community needs to extend past the service members and into general population, because there's only 1% of the population or something really low serving now. So those who do serve, we need to look out for them, and we need to make them feel welcome, and that goes to their families too.
Okay. We just got another question in, and I'm going to kind of point this at both Dan and Kathy. Are there volunteer opportunities through your organizations?
Always.
Like what?
Some of the volunteer stuff. I approach this in two ways. Yes, we do some fundraisers, like that every other nonprofit most likely does, and there's always assistance needed with that. But we also help other people do, like the veteran races, the Buffalo Marathon. We're always, they come to us and go, hey, are there veterans or anybody who wants to come out and help? So we try to help other organizations also along with ourselves with those veteran opportunities. So there's veteran races where we help set up, we help guide. As a matter of fact, we just had it the other day. There's the fundraisers, of course. When we do a Red, Rock, and Blue every year. We're always looking for volunteers for that. And then how I look at it, if you're a veteran and you want to volunteer, or not even a veteran, if you care about veterans, you want to be around veterans, come to my events, talk to a veteran, make them feel welcome, with whatever you have, or just be there if you're a veteran as another peer for another veteran. Help me with my job, basically. Be there for a veteran if you're a veteran. Be a peer. That's how I tell a lot of people in my world, if they want to volunteer, hey, come out to my stuff, meet some people, and help me with my job, talking to them and making them feel better.
And Dan, as an aside, I'm a runner, and I've run the Buffalo many a time, and I truly appreciate your water stop. It's one of those ones that, yeah. And I appreciate the significance of the Team RWB running on September 11th every year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, thank you for mentioning that. Kathy, how about you? Are there volunteer opportunities?
Absolutely. So, number one, we're hiring. We also, one of the things that we like to incorporate to all of our programs, we call it Outdoor RX, because being outside is just naturally healing, being in sunlight, fresh air, but this time of year for the last few months during our outdoor RX, we're teaching fishing, we're doing hikes, we're doing things so that the soldier, their families have an opportunity to do something outside with intention together that can be healthy recreation that they can do together. So yes, especially if you have some skills, always looking for good fishermen, and yoga, Tai Chi, all of those types of things we do a lot of mindfulness, meditation, breathing. I do like people to be certified in their area. But we do a lot of the fishing, and it's really fun to spend time with the families and with other soldiers and with our law enforcement. So yeah, absolutely, call me.
Good. And Felice, I know you're with the county, but are there volunteer opportunities with your department at all?
No, because of us having to deal with all kinds of specialized personal information and things like that, we all have to be certified. We have to go through security checks through the VA and everything to make sure that we're not criminals and things like that, because we're handling social security numbers, banking information.
I don't want criminals.
Yes. So yeah. Oh, they have my fingerprints on file now. See, so yeah. So no, we can't use volunteers, unfortunately.
That's okay. All right. Well, no, I mean, that's what this discussion is about, right?
Yeah.
I have one more question for all of you, and it's the final question because we're gonna be wrapping up our discussion here today. Just want to give each of you kind of a minute to talk about just some brief closing remarks, and just give a shout out of the services and how you can be reached. I know we're flashing it at the bottom, but just kind of give a final shout out and quick final remarks. Felice, can I start with you?
Okay, so we're the Erie County Veteran Service Office. We're in the Rath building, but we also do go and meet people in other areas because we know that the parking is difficult in the city. What we do is we actually help veterans file for disability claims. If you were hurt when you were in the service and you've got problems today, we help you navigate that, try to get you your disability compensation. And we also, we'll be there through the process. If it doesn't go through, we help with the appeals, things like that. We also help with a non-service connected pension for wartime vets. If you are wind up with physical, you're housebound, or the spouse of a deceased veteran is housebound or in a nursing facility, there is a program there that the VA has, and we help you go through all that paperwork to see if you qualify.
Thank you so much, Felice. And again, thank you so much for your service. And Dan, how about you? Final remarks.
First thing I want to say is just, if you need help, get it. I don't care what the form looks like, get the help, please reach out. That's why we're here. We have your back. We're here for you. Please come see us. I work at the Veterans One Stop, like we said, on Niagara Street, but we have counties all over Western New York. And we have programs all over Western New York, just like we have the homelessness program. If anybody's struggling with their homes or paying their bills, come see us. We have a suicide prevention program in 12 counties of Western New York. So please come see us. We have our own gym here on Niagara Street for veterans. Please come use it. But bottom line, remember us. We're here for you. And don't worry about the stigma. It doesn't mean anything. Just get the help.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you for your service too, really. And Kathy, I'm going to give you the final word here.
Wow. Okay. Well, we serve a lot of organizations. So what we do is we help create programming and deliver it for a wide variety of organizations. So if anything that we've been talking about or that I've been talking about seems like something that would help you, call and I will connect you with one of the organizations that's having us do their programs. And I'll help you do it.
All right. Great. Well, as a reminder to our audience, we need you to take the pledge to end stigma by going to our website, letstalkstigma.org. If your organization would like to join us in our cause, there's information on the website as well. Just click on the membership tab to find out how. Together, we can reduce stigma and create an environment of support where help seeking and help giving are the norm. Once again, I'd like to thank our really terrific panelists today, Felice Krycia, Dan Arnold, and Kathy Snyder. Thank you so much. I'd also like to thank everyone behind the scenes, Mike Telesco from Telesco Creative Group for his vision and technical support, Carol Doggett and Karen Karaszewski from KKPR Buffalo for their support. So on behalf of the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition, until next time, I'm Frank Cammarata. Stand up to stigma and good luck on your wellness journey. Thank you, everyone, and happy Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you.